Okay, Nick and Andy, Matchweek 29 in the Premier League and FA Cup quarterfinal preview predictions. Let's get stuck into it because the Premier League weekend has been, cut down in size of games due to so many teams being in the FA Cup quarterfinals. But we'll look at the Premier League games first coming up this weekend and then the FA Cup quarterfinals and preview and predict them. So Nick Mendola, Burnley against Brentford in the Premier League. Huge game for both these teams, really. I mean, both will be earmarking this as a must-win situation for Burnley, given their situation, but kind of Brentford as well, right, with some of the games they have coming up too.
Yeah, 2 games this weekend and 3 overall that I'll be watching over the next few weeks. Burnley, Luton, and Sheffield United both gave up big leads in games that would have been a huge 3 points for them. And the bounce back ability is a big one here. And especially with Burnley and Brentford as we continue the obliteration. I just think there's just so much on Burnley at home. And if something goes poorly, I think almost everybody's behind Vincent Kompany. I think there's a sort of acceptance at this club that we're going to try again next. Let's hope this goes well, but we're going to try again next year. And I just wonder where that bounce back comes from after Danny Ings, their old pal, does it to them to erase a 2-0 lead. It's just a huge ask. And I also, frankly, think Ivan Toney against that back line is a huge mismatch. So I have to think this is Brentford's game.
Yeah, I have to as well, Nick. I think that's spot on there. Burnley, they're trying to play good football. They're trying to do the right thing.
Not bad.
Yeah, they're scoring some good goals, but within games, they're just so inconsistent. Some of the mistakes, just naive, I guess would be the best word to sum them up throughout this season. And Brentford are kind of the opposite of that. They're pretty robust, ruthless, direct. So, yeah, I could totally see Brentford going to Burnley and kind of being Sean Dyche of Burnley and getting the win out of there at Turf Moor. Andy, Luton against Nottingham Forest. Talk about a relegation 6-pointer, mate. This is huge. And Nick mentioned it there, Luton being 3-0 up away at halftime against Bournemouth in midweek. They must have been thinking this is perfect set up for this game against Forest, and then they collapsed, obviously, in dramatic, historic fashion, lost 4-3. I mean, how will Rob Edwards and those players be reacting? Because, Carlton Morris has heard him speak after the game, so we just got to learn. We're so much better than we were at the start of the season. We have to learn and just try and, focus now on the Forest game. But in a nutshell, this is almost the season for these two teams, isn't it?
And in the context of the entire Premier League, it's one of the biggest games of the season anywhere, and so it's kind of fun that that we have a weekend of just 4 games, and so it comes to the forefront a lot more than it otherwise might, because this could effectively settle the relegation battle at this point. If Forest go on and win, and it's 6 points between them, they're safe. And I think at that point, and maybe even already, I don't know. I'll defer to you, Joe, because you've been high on the Hatters all season. It feels like the magic has started to run out, and it, not just because of the loss or the blown lead that they had and 3 points dropped, but it's been going that way for a while now. They've got just 6 points since it turned over to 2024. Since they got the 2 own goals to beat Sheffield United right before the new year, they've got just 1 win. And so it feels like they've run out of momentum and steam. They're trying, and they're still putting up good performances. But when you're the underdog the way that they are in virtually every single game, you need a little bit of luck to go their way, and they just haven't had it.
Yeah. I am mad about the Hatters, as we said last week, so I'm going to keep that pun going. Injuries have hit them hard. If you look at the players they have out, they have really been stretched thin, and I think we saw that midweek. They just ran out of steam against Bournemouth after a great first half display. I do think they get the win against Forest here. I think this is a Forest team who really don't know who they are, what they're doing, what they're being asked to do. I mean, Nuno, it's got very clear tactics, but I'm not sure most of this Forest team really want to play that way, if that makes sense. It's very kind of different than what they're naturally used to doing. So
I see when Nuno was brought into Spurs, by the way.
Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly. So it's a huge game. I think, don't rule out the Kenilworth Road factor. How many big teams have struggled there this season and only maybe escaped with a narrow draw or a narrow win, given how well Luton have played at home. So I just feel like they have to win this, Luton, to keep themselves in there. And let's not forget about the potential points deductions for Forest and another one maybe for Everton as well, just to throw another spanner in the works. So huge game for Luton this weekend. I think they'll find some way of getting it done, especially with Ross Barkley, by the way. He's been excellent in midfield. Nick, I'm going to come to you on West Ham, Aston Villa, because I don't know. This is an interesting time for Villa, given how good they've been throughout the season. Hammered against Spurs last time out. How do they kind of react to this?
Yeah, it's funny. They're very, I don't know if resilient's the right word, because when they lose, they have a stinker. It's almost like they look around and say, not our day. Better luck next time. And the next time they might come out and just throttle somebody. West Ham, very, very, very tricky to predict this season. Loved their comeback against Burnley. Didn't love going down 2-0 to Burnley. So I would just bet on Ollie Watkins here, the enabler, I like to call him, when enabling is a good thing. It just makes everybody around him better. Forces them to run hard. We talk about Leon Bailey, who maybe had a reputation for not always giving it his all or whatever. And everyone said, Unai Emery, he has evolved him. He certainly has. But also, do you know how bad you look when you don't run as hard as Ollie Watkins and he's the guy out there also running? So I think this has Villa written all over it.
Well, there you go. Andy, Fulham Spurs, London derby. What do you think, mate? Spurs are surging.
They are, and it's, they got everybody virtually back from injury, and they're starting to get a little bit of sharpness and understanding playing together. We're seeing a very interesting trend with Spurs and the way that some of their recent games have gone. All of their last 3 wins have played out almost exactly the same. They've been frustrated, maybe even conceded in the first half, couldn't create anything against a team that was sitting deep and defending, and just giving them no real space to work with. And then they come out for the second half, and they try to play up-tempo and press Spurs and put them under pressure, and Spurs just tear them apart and go and score 2 or 3 or 4 goals in the second half and look like this superstar team in the second half. So it's very interesting, kind of the tactics that have been deployed against them and how they've struggled and how they have succeeded. You would think maybe it would be the other way around, but I don't know. It's a team that's coming together at the right time of the season. I think they've got all the momentum in the race for 4th. I think ultimately they get there because I look at their remaining fixtures. I back them in just about every one of them to the end of the season. So I think they'll get the win this weekend. It'll be close late. I think they're not quite good enough to blow teams out yet, but they are good enough, and they have the belief now to grind out. I'll take a 2-1 win over Fulham.
Yeah, Fulham are tricky. If Fulham score early, then they do kind of get into their groove and they create chances. And Muniz at top, obviously, has been excellent in recent weeks. So they can get in the supply line with Mickey van der Ven, we think, out injured. Then that could kind of be more interesting than it probably should be, given the talent out on the pitch for both sides. We focus now on the FA Cup quarterfinals. Nick, we spoke a lot on this week's show about Man United, Liverpool, but your quick thoughts and prediction on that one?
Yeah. Look, 2 guys this year who over the course of the last few years, at some point we have left for, left as cooked. Let's put it that way. Virgil van Dijk and Casemiro. And both have been popping up recently in big, big, big places for them. And this is the sort of game where guys like that succeed. I like the midfield here in a pragmatic fashion for Man United. I like Casemiro to show his tournament savvy. And I think Bruno Fernandes has been due a hot streak. He's been producing a lot of great passes, but now I think he's shooting a bit more. And I don't know. I like Man United here. I don't know why. It just feels to me. In a season of feels for Liverpool, I'm feeling that Man United might get a W here.
Yeah, at home, huge rivalry game, much better on the counter-attack. I could see that. I could totally see that. Andy, when we look at the other FA Cup quarterfinals, Man City against Newcastle is the other all-Premier League tie. I mean, Newcastle hit by injuries. Some of their players just seem like they really want this season to be done and dusted. But is there an argument to be made that actually if they can get past City here, then this is their best chance of getting back into Europe next season? So I don't know. There's a lot on the line here. And again, City going for the double treble.
Yeah, hit by injuries again for the second or third time this season. It feels like every time Newcastle just about gotten their heads back above water, pulled right back down, and just struggling to stay afloat. They're kind of top half of the Premier League, and yeah, they should go all out to win the FA Cup this season. Like, that should be the priority. Now, it's easy to say that when and then on the weekend you've got Manchester City and you've got to face them head up. But if they can get through this one, they could beat anybody remaining in the field. That said, I don't think they do it. City, despite the result against Liverpool, I think that had more to do with Liverpool. City look really, really sharp and comfortable. They're not panicked, even though things aren't going quite perfectly at the moment. And I think that's a scary prospect to face. So I'll take City 2-0 and fairly comfortable.
Yeah, one point on Manchester City, Kevin De Bruyne actually hasn't been named in Belgium's squad for the international games coming up due to a bit of a groin issue, the Belgian manager's saying. So haven't heard from Pep or City on him yet, but that's just something to keep an eye on, that he may not be risked against Newcastle. So maybe that just gives Newcastle a bit more hope in that one, Nick. So fingers crossed for you, mate, because I know how big that would be for you in Newcastle.
It would be huge. It would be Joe. I can't. As someone who follows the team, I literally, if you told me they're going to the final, I don't care what happens the rest of the season because of the way the season has gone. I think what it would mean for Newcastle to return to a second cup final in as many years, it would just mean so much to the city. I think it would say something for the north of England as well. I really would love just that. And maybe that's because I don't see them making a European surge, but as someone who's watched this team for a long, long, long time, to be in an FA Cup final sure would mean a lot.
Yeah, and it kind of would mean a lot for Eddie Howe's future, I think, as well, the way things have crumbled a bit.
Sure
I think he's obviously still got a lot of cash in the bank from reaching the Champions League last season, but it would mean a lot to him, I think, to have another cup final on the old resume, just to say, hey, I did this even with all these injuries. And it's not out of the realms of possibility, but this is City at home. Even though Newcastle gave him some problems, was it back in January when De Bruyne first came back from injury? They were leading that game, but he surged back. So there is something there about Newcastle against Man City, where on the counter, if Isak and co can be clinical, then there will be chances for them, I think, away at Man City. But it's hard to bet against City, especially going, as I said, for the double treble this season. Looking at the other FA Cup quarterfinals, Wolverhampton Wanderers host Coventry City, second-tier Coventry City, in a huge game, Midlands derby there at Molineux. Andy, Coventry have been pretty good in recent months. They started the season slowly. Obviously, they were the losers in the playoff final last season when Luton came up. Under Mark Robbins, incredible story, the way he's taken them up through the leagues, given all the financial issues they've had. Kind of see this as a reward for them for all the great work they've done over the last couple of seasons, and they could beat Wolves. Wolves have got a lot of injury problems with their attacking players, key players up top. So it might be a good time to play Wolves. But obviously, Wolves are having a great season under Gary O'Neill as well. So this is going to be really interesting, and really interesting for USM&T fans with Haji Wright up top and the main man for Coventry.
Yeah, it's nice that the reward is a potentially winnable game, and it's not, hey, here's Manchester City in the quarterfinals. Good luck. Enjoy your day out. Or maybe it's away at Man United, so it's a nice hefty payday for a lower league club. They could very conceivably be in the FA Cup semifinal here in just a few weeks' time. Yeah, I think you said it right, Joe. Maybe kind of the right time to catch Wolves if that's who you're going to play. With Pedro Neto going down again last weekend, it's just, couldn't be a worse time, because everything I just said about Coventry, also true for Wolves. You look at this team and having a singular focus now at this point of the season. They know they're very comfortable in the Premier League. They're going to be in that top 8, 9, 10 spots, and then focus on an FA Cup run. This could be kind of like Nick just talked about with Newcastle. This could really be a season to remember for Wolves. When, going into it, you would have never, even Wolves fans would have never otherwise expected that. They would have thought, let's just stay in the Premier League this season. And they have overachieved to such a level at this point that they're kind of playing with house money. So it would be really, really nice to see them maybe even go on to the final. And so they'll get past Coventry. Probably more comfortable than the romantic football fans in us would like. You want to see that story, but Wolves, I think, will do it.
Yeah, I think so. But Coventry only 1 point off the playoffs in the Championship right now, so they are maybe looking set to just sneak into the playoffs. And who knows, as they've kind of peaked at the right time of the season in England's second tier. And talking about England's second tier, Nick Mendola, our final quarterfinal, Leicester City, the leaders of the Championship, head to Chelsea away. Obviously, Leicester beat Chelsea in the FA Cup final just a few years ago, but a lot's changed for both teams since then. How are you looking at this one? Because again, we talked about Erik ten Hag needing this, maybe Eddie Howe needing this. Pochettino really needs to get past the second-tier team to get to another semi-final, and he probably is a man that needs a trophy just to justify what he's doing at Chelsea right now.
Yeah, there was a lot of swagger in Chelsea's game against Newcastle that I took away from the game, and I was surprised by that. Obviously, there's a lot of talent there, but there's an undercurrent there of when we connect, maybe this thing explodes a little bit. And it might be for a short period of time. Might be Neil Young. It's better to burn out than to fade away. But I do look at Chelsea and think that this will be too much for Leicester. There's something about Cole Palmer. When Nicholas Jackson scores, it surprises all of us and it doesn't surprise him. And he has more goals than you would think. This is a defiant group that I just think they've been unlucky. And this won't be the game where, with all due respect to Leicester, who's had a bit of a downturn after an unbelievable start. Oh, yeah. I think Chelsea might have a bit of a 3-1, a 4-1, a vibes win, if you will, at home.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, record-breaking start to the season for Leicester in the Championship. They pretty much led it the whole way, but they've only won one of their last 5 in the Championship, and now the likes of Leeds, Ipswich, even Southampton are hunting them down. So for Leicester, the FA Cup isn't really the focus for them this season. It's like a nice bonus under Maresca there, but they play lovely football, very different than Chelsea. They like to keep it, possess it. So I think Chelsea might have to just be patient in this one for gaps to open up, but I think they eventually will in the second half, and their extra quality will definitely shine through. So head over to Pro Soccer Talk at NBCSports.com for all the latest from Matchweek 29 and the FA Cup quarterfinals. I'll have you covered as both of these competitions are entering very intriguing stages. A lot of Premier League teams involved in the FA Cup and have hopes of trophy glory. Nick, Andy, it's been glorious to chat with you two. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll speak to you all very soon. Cheers, guys.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. And for even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock. And be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you there.